Welcome into the Men's Basketball Roundtable here on Devils in Detail. I'm Richard Geraffo, and alongside me is Trevor Booth. And Trevor, the Sun Devils just completed a road trip in which they went to Washington. They played the Huskies and the Cougars, and in that they split each game, losing to the Huskies. What did you see in that game from the Sun Devils?
Well, going into the Washington game, we knew that Coach Mike Hoppins was going to bring the best executed 2-3 zone that the Sun Devils have seen all season, him being a former assistant coach at Syracuse. And they really put it on Arizona State in the first half, limiting them to just 27 points, which was their lowest in a half in all season. The second half, the Sun Devils were able to come back from a 13-point deficit, but they really weren't able to close in late-game miscues. We saw Cody Justice miss the front end of a 1-and-1 with about 5 minutes remaining, and then they weren't able to stop Noah Dickerson and also David Crisp for Washington down the stretch. So just a lot of the same problems that we've seen for them in Pac-12 play. But Rich, against Washington State, the offense was really able to click.
Yeah, it definitely was. There's a little bit of a different story when they went up against the Cougars. Playing the Cougars, you know, they're one of the worst teams in the Pac-12, and this was a game that ASU had to win, quite frankly. And they got great performances from Shannon Evans, Romello White, and Trey Holder. Each of them gave 20 points to the Sun Devils in this fantastic-looking win. But the thing that stood out to me was the way that they dictated pace, the way they played defense down the stretch. We saw huge steals from Remy Martin and Trey Holder, in a very, very encouraging sign, because this is something that the Devils have struggled with, quite frankly, for quite some time. It was nice to see them kick it up on defense, and Bobby Hurley talked about it. He talked about how that was the key to the game. They forced Washington State into 18 turnovers, and that led to 34 Sun Devil points. So really, that was the difference in this game against the Cougars. Now, looking forward, this is a huge three-game stretch for the Sun Devils. They're sitting at 5-6 in Pac-12 play right now, with a very challenging weekend coming up. To start that weekend off, we've got USC. Trevor, what do you think this game is going to show us? Yeah,
and USC is the second-ranked team in the Pac-12, and they've really started to come on after having a slow start in non-conference play and conference play. Before their loss against UCLA over the weekend, they had won 6 straight, and they've got 4 guys in Chimezi Metu, Benny Boatwright, Jordan McLaughlin, and Elijah Stewart that can get you 20 on any given night, and they really have a big post presence, especially with Metu. I think Daquan Lake is going to see a lot of extended minutes in this game for the Sun Devils to have a shot to compete with that experienced front line that the Trojans have. But as I mentioned, they did lose to UCLA, who's also been playing really well this season.
Yeah, UCLA, they've been playing very well this season. They're sitting at the 4th seed right now in the Pac-12, and they're 7-4 in conference play. And going up against the Sun Devils is going to be a very, very challenging and interesting game for them. The keys for the ASU in this game, they got to limit Aaron Holiday. He's been having a fantastic season. He's at 19 points per game overall, and he's averaging just above 20 in Pac-12 play alone. He's had 3 straight 20-plus scoring performances, and really the way that he's dictating these games, it's very impressive to watch, because he'll come up, he'll pull, he'll do whatever he has to do. So the key for this, you have to limit Aaron Holiday, and by doing that, you need to make other players beat you. Now, there are things that you can do to make other players, to shut down Holiday. You can throw multiple defenders at him. You've got Mickey Mitchell, Remy Martin, Trey Holder, and Shannon Evans. You could throw different bodies at him, not letting him get comfortable, and it's really going to be interesting to see. But another key for this game, we need to see an assertive Shannon Evans, like we did against Washington State. He started off the game, he finished with 23 points, he had 5 assists and 5 steals, and the steals is really what stood out to me, because it's not something we see a lot, really. So you want to keep this momentum rolling going against UCLA. Quite frankly, every game, it's a must-win for the Sun Devils at this point. And coming up, we've got one of the biggest games in, quite frankly, Arizona State in any sport. Going up against Arizona, this is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with all the talent that Arizona has. We saw it on display when the Sun Devils had their first Pac-12 game against the Wildcats. But Arizona has had a lot of struggles, Rich, on the defensive side of the ball. They rank outside top 100 in the nation in defensive efficiency. And Sean Miller was even saying in a press conference today that this is the worst defensive team that he's had in his 14 years of coaching. So a lot of pressure on this team to be able to stop some of these Sun Devil guards and keep them in check. I think it's going to be a really good and close game out in Tempe, and it's going to be one that's going to go competitive all the way to the end.
Yeah, depending on how these games against USC and UCLA goes, I could see the Sun Devils either going 0-3 or maybe 3-0 in this next 3-game stretch, and it's going to be very important to see. So, Trevor, that's going to do it?
Yep, that's going to do it, and like you said, this next 3 games is really going to decide where they stand in terms of the NCAA tournament. That's going to be it for this week's Devils in Detail Men's Basketball Roundtable. For Richard Geraffo, I'm Trevor Booth, and we'll see you next time.